Please stand. Already standing, Gary. So prior to the start of the meeting, our Kamatua Tame Pakaia will lead with the karakia, which will be followed by Reverend Phil Wilson. Then, following that, you can sit down, but prior to the meeting, the Mayor will be awarding a mayoral citation. So over to you, Tame.
So thank you to our Kamatua Tame Pakaia for opening our council meetings with the karakia over the last 3 years. It's much appreciated. And thank you very much to the Very Reverend Phil Wilson for being here in your organisation to give us a reading at our council meetings as well. So it's much appreciated. So before we open the council meeting today, I want to present an award. And this award is for Robin McDougall. So Robin, if you would like to stand and come to the front, that would be lovely. Thank you, Robin. Maybe come and stand beside me. So, I received correspondence a few months ago about Robin McDougall, nee Perry, and Ken McDougall, deceased, from their daughter Sally about their act of bravery 53 years ago. I believe that her email was sent to all elected members at the time. A copy of the newspaper clippings from the incident have been circulated. My office has been working with several organisations to see if an appropriate acknowledgement of their actions could be awarded. Unfortunately, due to the significant time that's passed since the incidents, recognition does not meet with the criteria of the organisations that we approached. So I believe that a mayoral citation would be an appropriate acknowledgement for their act of bravery. On the 6th of February 1966, Mrs. Robin McDougall and her husband, Mr. Ken McDougall, risked their lives in the Waikato River to save 11 people from a burning boat. 2 people died, and 2 of the children were in hospital for 3 to 6 months from the serious burns that followed the accident. Mrs. McDougall nearly drowned as she pulled one person to shore, but that didn't stop her from saving more. Both Ken and Robin thought each other had died during this incident. I believe it is a disservice that this act of unselfish bravery has not been recognised. So today, it is my pleasure to award the first Hamilton Mayoral Citation acknowledging the act of bravery by Robin and Ken McDougall. Okay, we'll open the council meeting of the 26th of September 2019, the last council meeting for this triennium. It's 16 minutes past 1 p.m. So I'll hand over to the Democracy Manager for apologies.
That the apologies from Councillor Southgate are accepted.
I'll hand over.
Sorry, Andrew, I also advise you I will be ducking out possibly about 2:15
Okay.
and come back. Thank you.
All right. So moved by Ms.
No, wait, and I have to leave at 2. I did assume the meeting would be over by then, so I'll come back.
So moved by myself, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. All those for, any against, carried unanimously. Confirmation of agenda.
Yes, so that the agenda is confirmed, noting the following: that item 9, recommendation from the Audit and Risk Committee, adoption of the annual report 2018-19, is to be taken after item 5 to accommodate availability, and that item 11, response to urban economic report, item 12, Chair's report, and item C2, Stadia EFOS update, be accepted as late items, noting that all have been circulated under separate cover prior to the meeting. Thank you.
Moved by myself, seconded by Deputy Mayor. All those for, any against, carried unanimously. Declarations of interest. There are no declarations of interest. Public forum. There is no public forum today that I'm aware of. Okay, Brian.
Unfortunately, we've gone faster, a little faster than what I'd expected, and Brian's unavailable now, so we'll just have to move through.
Okay. Confirmation of open council and committee minutes. So for the Community and Services and Environment Committee, the open minutes for the 22nd of August 2019, moved by myself, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. All those for, any against, carried unanimously. Growth and Infrastructure Committee, open minutes 27 of August 2019, moved by myself, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. All those for, any against, carried unanimously. Finance Committee, open minutes 10 September 2019, moved by myself, seconded by Deputy Mayor. All those for, any against, carried unanimously. Regulatory and Hearings Committee, open minutes 12 September 2019, moved by myself, seconded by Deputy Mayor. All those for, any against, carried unanimously. Council open minutes 17 September 2019, moved by myself, seconded by Deputy Mayor. All those for, any against, carried unanimously. Audit and Risk open minutes 23 September 2019, all those for, moved by myself, seconded by Deputy Mayor. Okay, seconded by Councillor Gary. All those for, any against, carried unanimously. Item 9, page 84, recommendation from the Audit and Risk Committee, adoption of the annual report, moved by myself, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. All those for, any questions, any debate, anything you'd like to add? So, welcome, Karen.
Thank you. Is this mic on? Right, okay. Right, so I would like to confirm that the Audit Risk Committee has recommended that Council adopt the 2018-19 annual report. The auditors are ready to sign the audit opinion subject to Council adopting the annual report. I would like to draw elected members' attention to page 165 of the annual report. This is the audit opinion. I note that the auditors intend to issue an unmodified opinion in line with, for the audited information, excluding the statement of the statement of service performance with regards to one performance measure, and that is the measure for resource consent processing times. I'm aware that elected members have received correspondence from staff regarding how that matter is to be rectified in future. So I respectively ask that that council adopt the annual report.
Okay, moved by myself, second by the Deputy Mayor. Any questions? Any debate? All those for? Any against? Carried unanimously. Karen, thank you very much for, Karen's the independence chair, Karen, of the Audit and Risk, and we just thank you very much for your very good chairing and
My pleasure. Thank you.
running that committee, so we're really appreciative.
Thank you.
And we acknowledge the auditors who are here today too, I think. Yes, so thank you for all you do. I know you probably don't get thanked very often, but thank you.
Auditing is cool.
Item 6, page 76. Jeff. Questions?
Maybe I've got an old version of Diligent, haven't I? Sorry, that's right, Andrew.
Okay, so we'll hand over to Leanne and our General Manager, Lance.
Thank you. Ko Leanne Jordan toku ingoa, here Visitor Destination Manager i te Kunihira o Kirikiriroa. Tēnā koutou katoa. So I'm Leanne Jordan, and as Mayor Andrew said, with me is my General Manager Lance Vervoort, and we're here to report back to you today following the resolution of the council meeting last week, where we were asked to undertake further targeted consultation in respect of the Hamilton Gardens Draft Management Plan. So we have met with both Creative Waikato and the Hamilton Gardens Arts Festival Trust, and we'll give you a summary of those discussions in a minute. Just before we do that, we thought we would just, hopefully I'm pushing the right buttons, Becca. Is it just the arrows on the 6? Or yes, it is. Experiment and see what happens. Thank you. Give you a little bit of a background around the consultation. And this will be information you've had before, so I don't intend to go through this in detail, just step through this quickly. So the consultation process, again, just the key points in terms of what was done as part of the report back to you at the last meeting in terms of the deliberations report. And of course, since consultation closed and we had the meeting, the regulatory and hearings meeting around the hearings submissions for the management plan, of course, you'll be aware that there has been some other social media attention, which we'll come to shortly. But in terms of the engagement process that sat around the consultation, this is more of the activities that were undertaken by staff. So just in context there, in terms of plans that we've consulted on in recent times. And again, in terms of analysis from the Regulatory and Hearings Committee in terms of the level of submitters' reactions, in terms of both the long-term development, i.e. the overall plan, and the specific question to relocate the car park. So, as you'll recall, we took you through this at the regulatory and hearings, and this was included in the report that came last time. And as a consequence of that meeting, as I say, you asked us to carry out some targeted consultation. So we have met on Tuesday with members of both groups, and I'd just like to give you a summary of those conversations. So in terms of the conversation we had with Creative Waikato, and I think members of both groups, some are in the audience today, we met with the Chair, Amanda Hema, our Board Member Brian Square, and Jeremy Raymer, who is, sorry, my bad, who's the Acting Chief Executive. So in essence, the conversation was positive, the conversations in both groups were positive, and it was an opportunity for staff to set out the logic behind the proposal that went out for consultation. So in essence, the key points of that conversation are up there. They're supportive of the plan in principle. Comments, as you can read there, in terms of the Governor's lawn and the rhododendron lawn. They're very excited about the prospect of the proposed amphitheatre, with the caveat that the design would need to be right. And they also indicated that they're very keen to be involved in developments at the gardens through an arts sector lens, in terms of initiating, facilitating sessions with the arts community, perhaps specifically regarding design and use of performance spaces within the Hamilton Gardens, including the proposed amphitheatre. We then met with the Hamilton Gardens Arts Festival Trust, and again, I think, subject to Chris Williams and Hamish Nathan are in the room with us today. It was a positive conversation from our perspective, and an opportunity to again explain the logic behind the plan, but also to hear their comments and concerns. So, as you can see there, they are committed to the preservation of the rhododendron lawn. Primarily because they do see its usefulness as a performance space, but also because it serves a purpose as a multi-purpose green and open space. I think it would be fair to say that they too were interested in the opportunity presented by the amphitheatre, again with the caveat that it is designed correctly, but they do not see it as a replacement for the rhododendron lawn. And I think they too are interested in engaging further with Council on any developments around performance spaces at the gardens. And as I alluded to earlier, you'll be aware of the public concern that's been raised through social media. There's some facts there. There are some misconceptions through the social media that we just would like to take the opportunity to correct for the record. And they concern the large, either ghost gum, white gum, or large gum tree, referred to in various ways by people. This was never intended for that tree to be removed. It is a feature of the Hamilton Gardens and one we're very keen to retain. I guess as well as just to correct any misconceptions around the perception that there was no explicit question in terms of the consultation around the conversion of the rhododendron lawn. It was one of the 4 key focuses and one of the 4 questions that was outlined in the submission form. But as you can see, there is, I guess, significant public interest in the future of the rhododendron lawn being demonstrated. So that's essentially what we had to present, and we're happy to take any questions that you might have.
So could I just prompt the public gallery, was there a petition that was being presented today? No, this is the opportunity if there was, so thank you.
I believe it should have been. That's all I know about.
Yep. Okay.
It's presumably still in preparation, but there were a large number of signatories, so I would assume it is to be presented.
Okay, thank you, Judy. All right, so we have questions from Jeff.
Thank you, Mayor Andrew, and thank you, Leanne and Lance. So can I just clarify again, so the views of the Garden Arts Festival on the rhododendron lawn So is it fair to say that they're saying that the Governor's Green is not seen as a decent replacement as far as they're concerned for that?
That's correct. I think they agreed that it would serve some purposes as a performance space, but they didn't believe it was suitable for classical or acoustic performances because of its proximity to the road
Okay. So
and the ambient noise that would be around.
Yeah, and there was one other thing, and I know Chris is here in the audience, that the distance from the hub of the gardens, you know, how far towards Cobbin Bridge it is, they thought that the distance is an issue as well, especially that was the main events area,
Righto.
whereas the rhododendron lawn's sort of right in the heart of the gardens, and, you know, I think the term was used where it's all happening sort of thing, so there was that issue as well, as well as the noise.
So from the time of the hearings, we're no closer in terms of those two views.
That's correct.
The new performance venue that was unveiled at the last council meeting, I think we saw a visual of something there. And at that stage, the Garden Arts Festival people, I think we were told that they hadn't been shown that. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So can you just elaborate a little bit more on their response to that, now that they've seen it and now that they know a bit more about it?
So they were interested in the opportunities presented by the amphitheatre, and they could see that that would be a useful performance space. The idea that there would be, particularly, again, the point about it being designed right was that if there were the appropriate technology and infrastructure in terms of staging, and it was oriented the right way to ensure that the acoustics were good and suitable, then that it had merit and value as a performance space. And they qualified that statement by saying that they still did not see that as a replacement for the rhododendron lawn.
Right, okay. Has any work gone into that new performance space in terms of research, or, you know, there's no idea about how it would be built or what it would look like or costings or anything? It's just a
very, very high level idea, probably not even described as a concept, but in our conversations with both Creative Waikato and the Festival Trust, we asked if they would be interested in contributing input and ideas towards the design, and both indicated that they would be happy to do so.
Okay, thank you. Just one last question, Mary Andrew. Thank you for your indulgence. If there was just some discussion at our last meeting about possible deferrals or putting a decision off, if that was to happen for 1 or 2 months or 3 or 4 months, what would be the practical issues with that? Would there be any practical issues with that in terms of moving on with the plan?
Well, a practical issue is that it'll slow down when we'd actually start doing some work. And obviously, one of the first things was around the configuration of the revamp of the visitor centre. And so basically, it would push it back by the timeframes that you're talking about, essentially. So there's practical issues there. Contractually and things like that, they're not, you know, that's not insurmountable. So, you know, we've got a bit of wriggle room there. So I think we're okay doing that, just bearing in mind councillors would have to just accept that, you know, things would be 2 to 4 months or whatever the time takes if things were deferred to the next triennium in discussion and bringing this back by that particular amount of time, depending on when council meetings are set and that sort of thing.
Okay, thanks, Lance. So other than pushing out what is a long-term slow-burning plan anyway, really, I mean, it's a big monster. There's a lot to happen. Other than pushing that out for a few months in terms of timing, there's no contractual issues, there's no cost issues, there's no funding issues for doing that.
There's one other, is that we, with the Hamilton Gardens Development Trust and the project governance group, and I see Glenn's here in the audience, we're working with a potential sponsor at the moment, and we would have to have a conversation with them about their their continued interest in the project should timeframes get stretched out. I don't know the answer to that question. So far they've been reasonably flexible. We have got some other prospects as well, and time would only tell whether or not any minor or major delay would spook the horses in that sense.
Sure. Thank you.
Councillor Mark.
I'm just thinking about a motion, but just a couple of brief questions. Thank you for your for the work and the stresses put you under. I appreciate that. Were there, apart from the other two that you talked to, was there much correspondence from the rest of the community in this last week?
We received correspondence from, I received about 4 emails.
Yeah, and I've received half a dozen, and I know the Mayor's office has probably had a similar amount, so
right, okay,
probably 20 emails or letters.
Right. Just seeing a bit of reassurance around that tree, because I know in 2 meetings, no less, Dr. Circle's been talking about how it's only got a couple of years left in it anyway, and yet I'm seeing on the Gardens Facebook page that it's got a long and happy life ahead. What's the latest, the very latest on that, on the tree?
Okay, so we got one of our arborists to go and have a look at the tree, and we are advised that there is no reason why that tree could not last for another 100 years.
Wow, okay.
It's a bit of an unknown because the research that Dr. Sergel had done, of course, was predominantly around gum trees in Australia, which have quite drier and quite different conditions. So we had an arborist from, as I say, from our team go in and look at the tree to both assess its health and potential longevity, but also to talk about what would need to be done in order to keep it in good health should any development occur in proximity to it. And we're confident that any design would ensure the health of the tree to the extent that we are able to.
Good news. Okay. Mayor Andrew, I wonder
Thank
if
you,
I
Mark. Councillor Rob.
If we did defer, as Councillor Taylor has mentioned, what options would you have in mind to of the work that you might undertake during that deferred period? Do we go back and start the whole consultation process again, or do we extend perhaps the small targeted group that you would have only had time to target over the last week? Have you got some ideas as to what we might do if it did get deferred for a couple of months?
Bearing in mind the significant public interest which has come to the fore in the last 10 days, I think my advice to council would be to, if it was deferred, come back to a briefing and get staff to actually present what is the actual situation at the moment, and there'll probably be some questions around how a petition gets presented and all the procedural issues around that and how that fits in with the Reserves Act. We might have to take a little bit of advice on that. The Reserves Act's reasonably permissive compared to, say, the Resource Management Act, etc. But also to outline to you what are your options going forward around reconsulting on part of the plan and how we do that, or is there some other direction that council would like to give staff in relation to the plan? So I think it'd be about, my advice would be to come back and give you that information so then we can get some clear direction going forward, and we would give the advice around the process too. But like I said, the Reserves Act is reasonably permissive in the process.
Okay, and you mentioned that you had talked over the last week to Creative Waikato and to the festival board. Were there any other groups or individuals who you spoke with in response to concerns that arose from last week's meeting?
No, and just to kind of put a context around that, we spoke to those groups who had submitted on the plan, so we undertook further consultation with groups that were expressing concern who were part of the original consultation process.
And final question, did either Creative Waikato or the Festival Committee submit in the submissions?
Yeah, as I say, that's why we spoke to them both, because they did. They
They had
submitted.
previously submitted.
You'll recall that the Chief Executive spoke at the last meeting in terms of the integrity of the consultation process that we'd been asked to undertake by Council in the first place, and so that's why we undertook the targeted consultation in that way.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Point of order. Mayor Andrew, I hadn't finished my questions and I had foreshadowed I was going to move a motion. This is a procedural motion I'd like to move, please. And that is, in order for the community to have further engagement in this matter, the report and recommendations of the Hamilton Gardens Management Plan be referred to the first normal business meeting of the 2019-2022 Council. Please.
Can we get that on the board, please? Do you have a seconder?
Got a seconder? Dave?
Yes. Excuse me, no talking. Read the motion, understand the motion, there'll be no talking. Okay, can Democracy please read the motion out so there's no misunderstanding?
In order for the community to have further input on this matter, the report and recommendations on the Hamilton Gardens Management Plan be referred to the first normal business meeting of the 2019-2022 Council.
Okay, we'll go to the board to vote. There's no talking, I'm sorry. Sorry. There isn't any there is no talking. What is your technical matter?
Sorry, point of order. It is not permissible for a staff member, and except for governance, to raise any matters when there is a procedural motion on the table. That is way out of order.
So no talking, please, anybody.
That's a point of order of mine.
Excuse me.
Mr. Chair, I've moved a point, I've put a point of order up. You have to rule on that.
Yep, no talking, please.
The chairperson may respond to any questions regarding the member's obligations under legislation and standing orders prior to putting the matter to the vote. I think that's what the Mayor is undertaking at the moment.
No talking, please. So I'm satisfied that staff are allowed to bring up technical matters, but the staff member concerned has decided that it isn't of serious enough significance that it matters. So we'll go to the board to vote. Excuse me, Gary, no, you can't. There is no points of orders, there is no talking. We're a procedural motion. It's not a normal motion.
The procedural motion is declared carried, 8-4, 4 against.
If I may speak now, can we just figure out what was
Procedural about that motion. That was just a standard
Excuse
motion.
me, Gary. I'll hand over to Democracy Manager.
So a procedural motion is to basically...
Used to shut down the
Sorry,
vote.
just a second. It's basically to defer or refer a matter to a future meeting, or for it to lie on the table. So
I beg your pardon,
yeah,
so that is a procedural matter?
It is a procedural
Okay.
motion, yes.
Apologise, Andrew, you were right.
So Thank you to those who have come for this, to hear this matter today who have interests in the rhododendron lawn and the gardens. So this will now be heard with the new council, probably in December, I would imagine, or November. Item 7, page 78.
I'm going to do that again. Will you?
Okay, we'll take the report as read. It's moved by myself, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Is there anything to add, Jen?
Oh, well, that's all right. I'll do it that way.
Okay, there's no questions. We'll go to the board to vote. Item 7, page 78, the next one on the agenda.
The appointment of a stormwater expert. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Okay, can we go to the board to vote, please? Okay, we're on the board, guys.
This is the appointment of...
Excuse me, we're voting.
Oh, you're voting.
Well, sorry, Mr Chair, I have not heard the motion because...
Sorry.
So I'm not voting until I've
Okay,
heard it.
it's page 7, item 7, page 78, the appointment of the hearing commissions to notify the requirement for Rotokauri Greenway. So are there any questions? Any debate? Yep, sorry, Councillor Dave.
Is why do they need to be independent? Why can they not be from council?
So I suppose it's just a certified hearing commission. The other thing is we are both the requiring authority and the territorial authority. So I think to keep that independence, it's good to actually have that independent hearing commissioners.
For a stormwater swale?
Yeah, so the reason that we've come today is that there are the proposal for 3 commissioners on this panel, but we do not have on our panel of commissioners anybody who has the kind of expertise that is required to talk about a significant swale like this one, which is why we've come today to request your approval for this expert to be appointed.
Okay, we'll move to the board to vote. Okay, we'll do it by a show of hands. All those for, any against, carried unanimously. Sorry.
Councillors McPherson and Gallagher dissenting? No. You were for? Councillors... Sorry, you had your hand up. Councillors McPherson dissenting.
Okay. Thank you, Jen. Item 11, Agenda 2, response to the Urban Economic Report. It's a late item. I'll hand over to the Chief Executive.
And I am going to hand over to Jen.
So,
mate.
I have. I'm sorry, Dave. Yes. So we're item 8. Sorry, we'll defer your item for now.
I retract my handing over to Jen and hand it back to the Mayor.
So we're item 8, page 82, and I'm handing this over to Dave. Dave, you can either stay in your seat or you can come up to the front, whatever you prefer.
Why would I come up to the front? Sorry.
Just to introduce it, to give you a sense of power and authority.
Has already got that. It would diminish it if I went up the front. It's a good answer, though. For the last meeting of council, you should have done that early in the triennium, Your Worship. Look, there isn't actually anything new in there. The reason it's come back here is because there was a mistake in the voting by one of the voters, which wasn't allowed to, as you'll remember, to be re-put. So it's come back again. But it's clarified that the money is to come from operational savings at Seddon Park in Part B there, that the extra 200,000. So it's still not saying that it'll come from new council money, which is the important thing. It has to come from within their work, their operational work, over the period of the contract. So this is it's pushing back, if you like, on the proposal. Just because it's got a cost overrun in terms of the contract doesn't mean to say the ratepayers should be up for that extra 200,000. Yes, you can do the work. We agree that it's necessary. Find some savings from within your overall operational work. That's all. Thanks.
Okay, so just to make it clear, the $200,000 savings as in B is from the operational savings from the whole of the Seddon Park budget, not just from the lighting budget. Councillor Robb.
Yes, thank you, Chair. At the meeting on the 10th of September, where this was previously discussed, staff indicated that it would not be possible to fund the 200,000 from operational savings at Seddon Park. Is there any sort of new evidence now to suggest that those savings could be achieved from, as the motion says, operational savings at Seddon Park?
With all due respect, they related that to savings in the operations of the lights alone, not to the overall one. Now that's clear from it's not restricted to savings from the lights, the cost of the electricity for the lights. That was the issue.
That's not my question. My question is there sufficient, is there ability to save the $200,000 from the Seddon Park operational costs?
So, Rob, can I just guide you, sorry to interrupt, but can I just guide you back to the motion on page 82?
Yep, I'm looking at it.
And under AB,
yep.
It's quite clear that what we voted on last time was 4 million to 4.2.
Yep.
And the savings had to come from the Seddon Park's lights, whereas what's been put up this time is from the operational savings from the whole of Seddon Park. Okay, so
No,
which
that's
is in,
not.
which
No,
is in
that's
B.
not. That's not as I read it. We've got, as I read it, and correct me if I'm wrong, as I read it, the contract price for the Seddon Park lights has increased by 200,000 to 4.2 million. If I read 5B correctly, we're looking now for the 200,000 to be funded from operational savings at Seddon Park. So what I assume is that there is a little profit and loss account which sets out what the operational costs are for council to operate Seddon Park. And what I believe 5B is asking is that in fact the 200,000 will come about from savings that management will achieve from that, from reducing the costs of operating Seddon Park, not just from the lights, the whole of Seddon Park. Now, my recollection was that staff said there was insufficient to manage that savings.
That's what I've challenged, because staff clearly said that they didn't think there was sufficient within the cost of providing the electricity, the savings achieved in electricity. They weren't asked at that point about the overall thing. And though Rob is suggesting now that they did, that's not. I was the one asking the questions at the time. It was specific to the cost of electricity to run the lights.
Okay, so Sean, could we please direct this question to you? So I think you understand what's being asked.
Yes, thank you. Look, I wasn't here at the meeting when this was discussed previously, unfortunately, but if I could just clarify a couple of points on the matter. First up, we could find the savings that's being sought out of the Seddon Park operating budget. We can achieve that. It'll be hard, won't be easy, but we will. Just to be clear, though, the business case for the lights did come up with a suggestion of an OPEX saving as a result of the new lights of $149,000.
Yep.
Of that, only $30,000 was related to electricity savings because whilst we're LED lights, we actually have to have more of them to do the job. So the savings isn't necessarily as huge as you would expect over that. But the answer to the question is we can find it out of the operating savings at Seddon Park. I will say it won't be easy, but we will do as you wish.
So if you do, I mean, is there a time? You know, I'm thinking here of how we're going to find the 200,000. It's going to take a number of years, is it, from the operating costs to have the 200,000? So in the meantime, do we not put some bulbs in some of the lights? So until we've got the savings to then go. I mean, I'm looking at the timing of how we'll find the $200,000 and how we will report back on the savings that we've achieved so that there's a kind of a repayment for that.
So we've been clearly told that the General Manager will find a $200,000 savings, and we presume, we take it for granted that that means you're not going to drop the level of service.
That's correct. I mean, well, we'll do our best on that front, Mayor, but the thing to remember is the savings that were identified as a part of the CapEx proposal for the Seddon Park lights have yet to be actually baked into the LTP. So when the next LTP is created, they will be baked in then, and I would propose that we would bake in these additional savings at that time as well. And if we can save anything between now and that LTP, we will, and we'll report on it.
So how do we fund the 200,000 in the meantime?
My understanding it's funded through the capital program already.
So that's from existing budgets?
Yeah, if I could pick that up. Councillors recall the report put to you said that this is in our renewals and compliance program in capital, that we would get the extra 200,000 from within that program of works. So we weren't asking for any extra capital funding, that we'd find that from savings within that portfolio of those types of projects. So we weren't asking for extra funding. We were going to do that in the capital program from identified savings across our whole portfolio.
So it doesn't mean that another from the renewals capital fund, it doesn't mean that another renewal gets deferred because
Correct.
this 200,000 has gone now to pay the extra cost of the lights.
Correct. That was our premise. We won't reduce other programs to fund this. We'll do
or
it
defer
within
them.
the savings.
Or defer them.
Or defer them.
Okay.
We won't defer them. That's the answer. Yep.
Okay. Just let me have a quick look and just.
Councillor Gary.
Rob might have another one.
No, I'll come back to Gary. I'll come back to him if he has
Right,
further.
thank you. Thanks, Andrew. I was very clear when I was voting over this issue that the $200,000 must be found from within the organisation, mustn't be found by.
Hang on, we're not in debate, so questioning.
Yeah, pardon?
We're not in debate.
Oh, beg your pardon. I'll wait till the debate comes around.
Rob, Councillor Rob, sorry.
Yeah, look, I think I've covered my questions off. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll start debate with Councillor Rob. Sorry, with Councillor Dave. No, sorry, we need a seconder here. Do we have a seconder?
It's still on the book.
It is seconded, sorry. Okay.
I've already spoken once. I may speak later, but not.
Councillor Gary.
You heard before, didn't you, Dave? Okay, sorry, Andrew, I forgot we were in questions in. Look, my rationale for supporting what Dave is bringing up now is that we need to bring some discipline into our spending. We need to make sure that when we set budgets that we try bloody hard to get close to those budgets rather than immediately rushing to us and grabbing some money out of the ratepayer. What my intention of voting for this recommendation is that this does bring some clarity, some discipline in the spending. If a future council, if and when a future council is, and they can't make the savings, is then addressed with we need $200,000 or $150,000, whatever it is, they will then make a decision based on their priorities at that time. But at this time, I think the priority is not to suck $200,000 out of ratepayers, but simply to try and find it within the organisation. And Sean helpfully has suggested that the majority of it can probably be found there. It won't be easy, and I appreciate him putting that back on the table. Thank you.
Could you please withdraw your unparliamentary language?
There was tons, isn't there, wasn't there?
Could you withdraw your swear word, please?
Which one was it?
Just withdraw your swear word. You swore and you didn't even know it. Just say, withdraw your swear word.
I've withdrawn my swear word.
Thank you. Councillor Ryan.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, look, I was a little bit more relaxed about the motion this time, given that the scope's slightly wider and, as we heard from staff, is achievable, so I'm happy to support it.
Okay, and before we go back to Dave, if he wants to speak again, I'll just say well done, Dave. You just saved $200,000 of ratepayers' money today. Good work.
Say is what Gary said without the swear word.
Okay, we'll go to the board to vote.
The motion is carried unanimously.
Okay, item 11, response to the urban economics report. This is a verbal report from Jen and Stafford. Thank you.
So, councillors, this report seeks to support the conversation and the debate around growth and how we manage it. Look, it's a topic that we and many of you have spoken about and encouraged over the last few months in particular. And the report in question that we are reporting on was released to the media, who shared it with us last week, and has since been the subject of 2 high-profile news stories. So I guess in encouraging and welcoming the conversation and debate around growth, we feel we have a responsibility to ensure that those discussions are based on fact. So staff, not me, they are really smart ones, have had a chance to read this report and provide the attached information for you for your review. But on our assessment of it, we feel that the report doesn't add value to the insight or analysis of growth funding or growth revenue for us, but happy to take your questions.
Councillor Gary.
Thank you. And it's a little bit confusing reading the reports, remembering whose side each one is on.
Yes.
Yeah, which report, and the staff report kept on referring to the report, and you're often not sure which report the staff were referring to.
I'm aware of that.
Having said that, just a few questions. The urban economics report, raised concerns about the capacity of infill infrastructure. Okay. That's something I've raised a number of times, and I'm not the only one who's raised that issue a number of times. And I'm forgive me if I put words in your mouth. I think I'm being told from staff that, no, we're sweet there, that we're up to date, and the expectation is we can continue getting 50-50 infill greenfield with existing infrastructure, or either existing infrastructure or the required new infrastructure is funded in our 10-year plan. Can you double yes me that, please?
Yes, I'm going to yes you on that. And that is part of our ongoing reporting to you. It was part of something called NPS UDC, National Policy Statement for Urban Development Capacity.
Can I stop you there, because that's something I hear about from outside entities.
Yes.
That is a requirement, is it? Is that a requirement by the government, the central government, or someone, is it?
Yes, that's right. It's a requirement of growth councils.
Okay.
Because the government wants to ensure that councils that are growing quickly have an understanding of their ability to meet the needs of the people who want to move here. So that has recently been changed to, under the new government, to a new measurement, but it's something that we work with Futureproof on, that is a regional piece of research that we've done once. It's coming up for review, so we'll be remodelling that, but this is a space that we are looking at constantly.
Okay. Another issue I think it raises is that the cost of infrastructure may overwhelm the market in terms of, and this, we've addressed this here a number of times with Rotokauri and things like that, there's huge infrastructure requirements there, which send DCs up to here, which then makes a property uneconomic to develop. That's one of the issues that's been raised?
It's one of the issues that's been raised.
And how do you respond to that?
In terms of...
Are there, or how have we measured that? Have we measured the fact that the cost of land plus the cost of building plus the cost of infrastructure could take things out of the, you've got this trendy word for the cost of a house divided by your income type
Yeah.
thing.
So
How do we, sorry.
So at the last council meeting, there was a report that dealt exactly with that subject in terms of assessing the impact
That
of
was
DCs.
bust and boom and all that sort of stuff.
No, there was another one that same day that was that addressed the impact of the DC policy on the cost of development in Hamilton. So that report talked to exactly what you're talking about, that there are three big chunks of cost in developing in Hamilton. One of those things is our cost, is the DCs.
Our cost is the infrastructure, the revenue to pay for it is the DCs.
Yes,
Yep,
yes,
yep.
yes, you're right.
Okay. And you're still comfortable that those things are right and that housing, the DCs, for example, do not price the average punter out of the market, or?
Do you want to?
Yeah, so basically that report highlighted that for the most part.
Which report are you talking about?
The report, sorry, okay, good
staff
point,
report.
Councillor Mallett, because we've got about 5 reports on the go here.
Yep.
The report that the GM's referring to at the last council meeting was basically our position on reviewing the development contributions with the support of our economist, and it did highlight that potentially Rotorua Industrial were outliers in the country from a development contributions point of view. And it did say that as part of the annual plan / 10-year plan, we need to consider whether or not we review those and consider whether or not that the downturn in those areas need to be addressed by other mechanisms. So that was something that we had already put on the table as part of that report. So that sort of those, but everything else.
So to that extent, I'm not trying to gotcha or anything like that. You are acknowledging that we possibly are setting out. We are a little bit out of the. We could possibly be out of the market in terms of.
Well, so basically, the challenge that's rightly out there is we've got land that is quite expensive to develop, and the development contributions reflect the cost of the infrastructure required to invest in that. First true statement. Second statement is the extent to which this council is willing to remedy that by other interventions to offset those costs through the ratepayer. And we haven't done yet.
DC caps or something like that?
DC caps, yep.
Okay. Another issue that, Jen, you will be familiar with, because we've discussed it previously offline, the covenants issue, and this is more about residential stuff. And these covenants, my understanding, are private agreements that we may or may not be aware of. And they typically are, if you build a house here, you can't build it too big, or things, you have to have driveways coming in off here, which may preclude that land from being as highly intensified as we as in the City Council may think is possible. Like we might have a whole lot of land out there. Okay.
You're right. There is no doubt a whole load of different covenants on different subdivisions in different areas around town. A lot of those, my understanding is that a lot of those are in the newer areas, and those are the areas that are less likely to be dealing with significant infill now and potentially into the future. But what I would say is that when we did the NPS, when we did the modelling exercise to look at capacity for the city, it was a first up exercise. The government had just said, you need to do this piece of work. So it was a significant collaborative effort by a number of councils and across the region to do that piece of work with the information that we had at the time.
Yep.
And over time, we fully expect for more information and better information and visualised information or whatever to be available. And so over time, as we continue to model these things, these models improve.
Okay.
And if there are sets of data that will deliver us covenant information that we can overlay into that model, that would be a big thumbs up from us.
Okay. So and you put some good qualifications in your answer there, which is totally appropriate. So you're saying that, and I'm not expecting. Well, I'm asking you the question. We don't know what all these covenants are, do we?
I don't know what all the covenants are, no.
Okay, so we could be looking at a suburb that's already been developed and think, gee, we could double the amount of residents in there, not knowing that, innocently not knowing that in actual fact there are private agreements saying that you may not do that in that subdivision. So I guess my question is, have we started trying to find that out, or do we think we need to find that out?
So what I would say is that the vast majority of the infill that we're seeing in our city is not in the areas where there are existing covenants. They're in older, more established suburbs where those things generally are not there, but we haven't started doing that work, no.
So, Councillor Mellett, covenants on terms of covenants last on titles for 50 years. It's highly unlikely that we'll end up subdividing Rototuna down, and so it'll probably be suburbs that are older than 50 years where those covenants have expired. We have a number of suburbs in the city that probably meet beyond the 50-year area, whether there was a covenant or not, and it's probably unlikely that an old suburb has those covenants, where we can actually overlay through our district plan high density, or even to that effect, to be honest, what's currently allowed within a district plan by non-notified duplexes down to 400, we can achieve this. We've got how many years worth of infill? 7 years worth of infill. Based on the current zoning though, yeah? Yep. So it's 7 years based on the current zoning.
Okay.
And can I just jump into that as well?
Your answer had a few probablys there. Probably won't have covenants and things like that.
Councillor, can I just pick that up? So just on that, so in terms of the modelling that we do and the number we use for infill, we don't take a map and assume that every little piece of land we can see is going to have a duplex or another house built on it. We take that whole number, and the number we've actually used is 11% of that land as our capacity number. So we take a very conservative approach to this.
Okay. To what extent are you able to talk to these other people and find out? We've had one. I was sat in one meeting we had, and to just really determine the validity of their concerns, because they are quite adamant that things are going to blow up.
Yeah, well, obviously you and I had that meeting, and look, we're really open to anybody's data. If people have got some pools of data that we can use for this kind of modelling, frankly, for any kind of modelling, we're really open to receiving that. The more we can get people involved in these conversations, the better. So we're very open to having that conversation.
So we have a very good relationship with the Property Council, and in fact I've offered and been offered in reverse as well to spend time together trying to understand these aspects to it. To be honest, this information was levelled at the media before it was levelled at us, so we weren't given the chance to sit down and have a good conversation about it. So it was not used to stimulate the right debate, is our view. We need to have that right debate based on the right information.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Robb. Yeah, thank you, Chair. So you're saying, Richard, that we had no input. We didn't see this report at all from Urban Economics until it appeared in the paper.
That's correct. To be fair, a lot of the information in that report was based on a significant number of Local Government Official Information Act requests.
Yep.
However, we didn't correlate that information together and had not seen the way the information was correlated together prior to the information being presented in the report to the media.
Okay, so given that it's an unsolicited report, should the motion really read that we're tabling the report rather than receiving it? Because the word "received" to me suggests some degree of acceptance.
I think you're receiving our report.
Oh, your report
Yes.
receives.
And we are tabling the attachment.
Okay, all right. If that's the interpretation.
This is the report of the report of the report. Yes.
And just one question that might follow on from what Gary was asking. Is it fair to say that people and families are attracted to come and live in Hamilton because of employment opportunities and maybe lifestyle education rather than house prices?
I think you're touching on a really important point, in that there are multiple factors for people making decisions to move out of Auckland or out of Hamilton or into wherever.
Or into Hamilton.
And absolutely we see all of those things. People are making lifestyle choices, schooling choices, family choices.
So the report doesn't cover any of those. It simply just focuses on potential land, building permits and so forth.
Yes.
The urban economics report.
Yes, the report purposely just focuses on the housing aspect of things.
Yeah, but in Auckland, where housing prices have continued to rise over the last 10 years, has not resulted in a fall in population, has it?
It has
not. In fact, it's the reverse. So that, their conclusion that our population might either fall or stabilise because of high housing costs probably is incorrect if you overlay the Auckland experience.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to debate. This is moved by myself, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, and I found the response very helpful, and obviously the response is in no what way would you call defensive, because I'm aware that for a new incoming council, of course you want to sit people in a room, and I acknowledge obviously the critical role of the Property Council, Hamilton Residents Ratepayers Association, who I understand had some role in commissioning or with support, Colin Jones. And I think it's interesting, Professor Scrimgeour apparently gave the particular report we've been talking about a B+, and obviously I'd be interested in his, how he ranked it and why. But I think what is the critical point, and it's not, I'm not poking holes in any report at all, it's all very useful. What's the critical point is we do reach some understanding agreement on data and figures, and that's obviously particularly with our relationship with the Property Council and other key investors and other residents and ratepayers. We at least can reach some common understanding as to criteria. But this has been a very useful discussion, and I will continue to read all these reports with great microscopic interest. And I think obviously this is going to be a really good session for an incoming council. Really do. Thank you.
Just a point of clarity, a point of order. Colin Jones, sorry, the Property Council didn't commission the Colin Jones report.
The Property Council made some constructive comment from the best of my memory, but certainly in any discussion, of course, and you've mentioned the Property Council, I'm just acknowledging that what I'd like to see, and I think it would be very useful for the incoming council, is obviously in terms of one of our workshop elected member briefings, briefing days, to have some of the key players in the room, because I think what's critical is that we at least get some, moving forward, some commonality of agreement, if possible, it may not be possible, as to the data and the figures. Thank you.
So just for the point of clarity, the council put out our report. Yes. Colin Jones has put out his report. Yes. It isn't connected back to the Property Council in any way, apart from the fact that Colin happens to be a member of the Property Council.
Paul, but I'm aware, I thought I read a comment from the Chair of the Property Council. I may have been mistaken, but very clearly, of course, I would welcome ongoing analysis from the Property Council as you would expect. Thank you.
Okay, so Council put out a very strong and a very robust report on our growth and where we're heading. And my concern stems from the belief that the report that has been put out by Colin Jones has a political perspective to it, or it's certainly conveniently timed to come out just ahead of an election. And we weren't asked to look at the report or comment on the report or have any input before it went straight to the media. And my understanding is that Colin Jones, who commissioned the second report, is associated with the ratepayers and residents who are also supporting Team Integrity as a party, and I have a concern about the political implications of the timing of this. I think had it been put out in a month's time, I think it would have been a lot more appropriate, but to be putting it out right on election, to me, seems convenient. I also believe that when reports are put out, that the data and the formulas as to how the writers get to the position they're in need to be open so that people can peer review reports and understand and correct if there are things that aren't right, or back up the proof that the report comes with. So my understanding is that there are flaws in the Colin Jones report, And I think it's very appropriate that council has corrected that today through and pointed it out through a record that's been put up by us accepting this report today. Councillor Gary.
Thank you. I disagree with you in regards to your supposition that the report is somehow political, although everything we do around here is political, of course. But Colin's been banging on about this for years. I think he's a man of good integrity, a man of great knowledge, who can get things wrong, as anyone can get wrong. But I do think that the issues he's raised really need to be looked at and looked at carefully, because if we get them wrong, they are big, long-term picture type things that you can get wrong that can stuff up everything else. So I think in the staff report, actually it does, paragraph 21, the council welcomes a review of its work and robust conversation about its thinkings, blah, blah, blah. So I completely endorse that, and I think this is what Colin is trying to engage in. The amendment, the recommendation is simply to receive the report, which is a pretty benign thing to do, so I'm happy to support the recommendation.
Okay, so this is moved by myself, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. All those for, any against? Carried unanimously. Okay, we now go to the Chair's late report. So there are 2 items in there. One of them on the Mayor's robes. Thank you, Stafford, and thank you, Greg, and thanks to your disciples for joining us today. Thank you, Brian. Okay. So the first part of that report, take it with you, Gary. It won't be here when you get back otherwise. So we'll take the report as read. There is a second part to the report with an update on the train, and Chris Allen, who was going to give us that update, isn't here. So, yep, so we'll pass that on to Dave.
On behalf of...
Thank you, Dave.
But actually, I had a question on the mayoral robes and the display in the Waikato Museum. I was wondering if you could arrange at the same time as displaying the robes, display maybe wax effigies of some of the former mayors at the same time wearing the robes.
Okay, can we please put that as part of the motion, please?
Any in particular that you've got in mind?
I'll go back as far as you can.
I'll leave you to put that motion, that amendment. Thank you, Gary.
Seriously, just the train, there's a small update. Some of people may have heard that we had a few problems after the government announced that the train was going to go ahead, and actually getting the necessary technical authorisation from NZTA. You've heard of some of the problems dealing with NZTA, and we certainly had appeared to have them for a while, but we haven't. It's eventuated after we met on the phone with the new chair of the NZTA board, Sir Brian Roach, newly appointed, that those problems have now dissipated. Rebecca's going to circulate a copy of this letter at some stage just for your information. All of those problems have gone. We're about to let the contract for the Rotokauri construction for all of the transport hub out there, and that includes the shifting the rail, the new rail platform, the park and ride, the overbridge, and changes to Tasman Road, and the landing of the bridge in the base itself. Chris expects to be able to put that out publicly on Monday or Tuesday next week. There is a preferred tenderer, but they're negotiating over some of the clauses in the contract with them at the moment as we speak. So everything's going to start, and the contract's going to be able to be finished in time. The contract sum has come within the amount that was budgeted. Some of the contingency is used up, but still within the total amount. So, and Chris will be able to report more on that next week. We can't say that yet now because it hasn't actually been signed, but it's all go. Yep. Sorry, the reason it's verbal is we just had this meeting at the end of last week on the phone. Yep. Sorry.
Yeah, just a quick. Just a question on some of the media reports that I've read, which have had at varying times cost increases disclosed, as well as time delays in getting up and running. Have those issues, are we now at a point where we know what the cost is? And I know that there are several parties involved in this, so all the costs don't obviously fall back on Hamilton City or the Waikato Regional Council, but it's not, the publicity is perhaps creating some degree of negativity on the whole project as costs go up and as it seems to be being pushed out.
I think the headlines more than the actual articles. Some of the articles had good information, but the headlines made it look
I agree with you on that.
When the proposition was put to the final business case was put to the NZTA board and they agreed with it, had a contingency built in, and that was within that had contingency for different parts. So we're only responsible for Rotokauri. The regional council is only going to be responsible for the operational costs and any overrun there. Kiwi Rail for their capital costs. Everywhere it's been compartmentalised when it wasn't originally. I think it's about 10 or just under $11 million contingency in total.
So there should be enough there for cost increases.
Our contingency was a couple of million within that.
That's
and
right.
we're within that.
Right.
But so when you consolidated it all, it did look like it was certainly increased over the original proposal. But the final thing that went to the board was what they've agreed with, and our costs haven't gone up at all. As far as the timing goes, Rob, it may, probably our part of it is going to take the longest to do, and possibly a maintenance building that Kiwi Rail's building in the Te Rapa marshalling yards, and they are both looks like able to be finished on time, which is, we're sort of targeting 1st of June. So the rail carriages themselves may be ready a couple of months earlier than that, it's seeming in April sometime. So
would Frankton be a contingency to actually start the service from Frankton if Rotokauri wasn't finished?
We haven't discussed starting it without using Rotokauri. We wanted the new one to be ready, but I guess that's a reasonable proposition if it's going to go past early June.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, for sure, because Frankton's just getting a lick of paint and the weeding and so forth and making it. It's a 1970s building that's quite usable. I think they have to widen the doorway to fit wheelchair access into the toilets and bits like that.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I don't know whether Chris wants to add anything, because he came back during it.
No, you were surprisingly accurate.
I beg your pardon?
I love those meetings.
That's why he gets about 4 times our salary.
Was he had a maker?
And he's shouting.
Okay, all those for? Any against? Carried unanimously. Sorry, that was moved by myself and seconded by the Deputy Mayor. That was the Chair's report. Okay, so we're now going to, I'm going to now suspend standing orders, moved by myself, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. And so we're adjourning, because we're adjourning the meeting and we're just going to the end of the year unofficial wrap up before we go back to excluding the public to do the last part of the report. So I'm going to invite each person in the room, including the Chief Executive and General Managers, if they'd like to say a few words. There won't be a time limit on how long you can talk. That's dangerous with politicians. And there will also be some tokens of acknowledgement handed out at this part of the meeting as well, and to say thank you to people. So I'll start off with my final speech for the triennium. So councillors, staff, the media and those in the public gallery, today draws an end to the 2016-2019 triennium of Hamilton City Council. I want to begin by acknowledging the late Councillor Philip Yong, who began this journey with us, but is sadly not with us today. However, we have welcomed Councillor Hamilton midway through this term to help fill the vacancy on the east side.
Yay.
I believe we can all agree that's been an action-packed 3 years for this council. What we can't deny is that this council has got things done, no matter how big or small. We voted and approved Hamilton's first fully accessible changing places toilet, and that was unanimous, that one. Thank you, Gary. We voted and approved the the HIF loan to Open Peacock subdivision. We voted and approved a free bus trial for our 18 and under. We voted and approved the new curbside recycling collection coming in for next year. We voted and approved a new library, sports field and town centre in the northeast. We voted and approved 2-hour free parking in the CBD. We voted and approved funding for Waiwhakariki and pooches in the park. We voted and approved funding for the Central Library and the Waterworld upgrades. And we voted and approved to fund and fight the casino to stop them adding more pokies. However, I believe the biggest change that we've made was that we voted and approved the introduction of Maunga Māori being involved in the decision-making process at the committee level, which has had a positive influence on how we do business and how we make decisions. These are only a few of the significant decisions that we've made, and I don't believe any of them passed unanimously, nor should they have. Regardless of the makeup of the majority of votes, councillors have had to work together to get the outcomes that they think are best for the city. And best doesn't always mean popular. To the councillors who have supported the direction that I have taken with this city, thank you. To those who challenged my direction, I thank you as well. A good democracy and good decision making is built on strong scrutiny. To Richard, our Chief Executive, and all the staff at Hamilton City Council, thank you for all the time, work and energy you put into the job to make Hamilton the exciting and prosperous city that it is. To the managers and senior leadership team who take our calls and answer our emails at all hours of the day and night. On behalf of elected members, we appreciate your time and tolerance as we seek your advice and guidance. I sincerely thank you. I want to specifically acknowledge our governance team, who are the primary support for elected members, as well as keeping the organisation safe from a protocols perspective. It may feel at times that elected members' sole purpose is to annoy the governance team with odd questions, requests and pushing timeframes. But I know all elected members value everyone in the governance team for the advice and guidance that they give. And from a chair's perspective, the assistance to navigate complex procedures and issues. Thank you. To our dear friends, the reporters, who I'm sure are watching through the live stream, who turn up week after week to the chamber, we appreciate the role that they play in educating the public on the decisions and actions made in this chamber. Council and its councillors have had a fair share of media attention over the last 3 years for a variety of reasons, some of it self-inflicted. However, the many interviews and questions that you have asked all of us over the 3 years has ensured that Kirikiriroa and New Zealand are informed on what is happening right here in Hamilton. To the Hamilton public, as this term of council ends, it's been a pleasure and an honour to serve as the Mayor of Hamilton Kirikiriroa. Hamilton, it is now your turn to make decisions on how the city will be governed. Who do you want to make the decisions around this table? Who do you want to lead the council for the next 3 years? Make sure you vote, because every vote counts. Araha, kirikiriroa, Love Hamilton. Okay, is there anyone else who would like to speak? Anyone in the room's welcome to speak. Councillor Mark.
I've got a statement to read out from Councillor Paula, and I've got a couple of words myself, if that's okay. Paula sends her apologies. She was off at a meeting she couldn't move. She says, "I'm sorry I can't be with you all today." She says, "I've appreciated the opportunity to chair the Community Services and Environment Committee. I think especially at this time of Philip Young. I enjoyed working with him and I admire his achievements in our community and the respect and integrity he has brought to the job. A big vote of thanks to all the staff and in particular Lance and his team. I know you're as passionate about our community places and spaces as I am. I recognise that the past 3 years have been challenging for staff but councillors alike. I have always felt well informed and supported and have enjoyed working with you all on projects big and small. To the Democracy team, a special vote of thanks for you managing us through these smooth and bumpy meetings. I'm grateful for the opportunity to sit as advisor on the Local Government Advisory Board and Conference Organising Committee in Wellington. I've enjoyed having input to important issues such as water, housing and climate. I'm proud to have played a role in the renewal of Waterworld, the opening of Waiwhakareke and the Pan-Pacific Hub, the local playgrounds and new jetties and more. I thank my colleagues all through the Waikato for their support. Thank you to my colleagues for the advocacy over the past 3 years on matters important to them and the public. Public representation is not always easy, as this past term has been a very busy time with its share of controversial issues. Thank you to Rob and Mark in particular. Mark in particular for your extreme good looks, okay, I added that bit in, who visited me and transported me to and from council when I had my ankle operation. Mark even pedalled a rickshaw when we had a central city site visit. You have got a photo of that. And those colleagues who provided condolences and support during some periods of bereavement, thank you also. I appreciated that. Kindness always makes a workplace nicer. It was wonderful to see the outpourings of kindness and compassion and fellowship of Hamiltonians following the tragic events in Christchurch, something that will remain with me always. Finally, I would like to thank all of the wonderful groups and people in our community that my work has brought me into contact with. It has been a true pleasure to work with you all. I've enjoyed working with our ethnic, youth and elder persons. I have also enjoyed being a member of the Peak Trust. I wish you all the best. Whatever the outcome of the elections, I thank you for your service to the city. Warm regards from Paula. From me, just a couple of quick words. I thought this has been such an amazing 3 years, an incredibly hard 3 years. 32 years as a radio broadcaster has been just fantastic, but this, wow, what a challenge. So I thought, what a better way to deal with it than with a poem. Are you ready? Beat, please, Mr. Mayor. No, just kidding. Yeah. So October 3 years ago, with fear I was frigid, when nervously I answered the phone call from Richard. All those meetings and promises and signs I'd erected, it was down to this phone call. Was I elected? Congratulations, Councillor. Well, Councillor-elect. What does that mean? I asked him direct. I'll always remember what he said next. You have no powers now. When sworn in, you'll have less. You remember that, don't you? It was a fantastic line. On my 50th birthday, we were sworn in right here, but the numbers were too tight to decide who was mayor. Recount and recount, the margin got smaller. Just think, 5 more recounts and you'd be mayor, Paula. So 2016, one day in November, the 5th or the 12th, I can't quite remember, we all got sworn in, the new elite bunch. First meeting's tomorrow and bring your own lunch. There were photos and bus trips and swipe cards and rushing and meetings with Andrew. You're the chairman of nothing. New cars, new car parks and new email procedures. Then 10 seconds later, a complaint from Jeff Krieger. There were trips to the gardens, a waste treatment station, then lunch at the cemetery to watch a cremation. Lectures and meetings, and then we were told the library is closed and the books have gone cold. Then the work started. There was so much to learn about planning, procedure and how the wheels turn. All of the acronyms, phrases and council hall jargon. Avoid causal nexus. Say what? Sorry, pardon? But the staff have been brilliant, with all of us new guys. They think we don't see when they're rolling their eyes. The hours they devote to reports is just great. Then Gary will point out they've missed out a date. The HIF work was stunning. The waste contract brill. So proud to be halving what we send to landfill. The books are more balanced, pools and libraries are fixed. You'll be glad to see the back of us soon. I can't leave today without sharing some fables about some of my colleagues who share this great table. We all are so different. We all have wide views. It's been quite a privilege working with you. Gary, we've been mates for 15 years now, and right to this day I can't work out how someone can talk and debate and grimace and grin and rave for 10 minutes without breathing in. Then there is Macca, or as Ryan says, Koru Dave, who's as subtle and tactful as a punch in the face. No matter, but how you've done so much done when so much has beset you, no matter how hard I try, I'll never forget you. Rob Pascoe, nice guy, a safe pair of hands. Nods off quite often, we all understand. I hope that we can deal with our traffic congestion before the queues in the traffic are as long as your questions. New Councillor Martin, our Deputy Mayor, who will outlast religion with his council career, who has rolled Prime Ministers, world leaders, the biz, and yet struggles to find out where the vote button is. Ryan, you're brilliant. Such a cool guy. Straight into politics. 17th try. Your work is so thorough, not shriek or is it loud. I'm confident dear Philip Young would be proud. Siggy, James, myself have been through the most brutal of treatment by national news. We've all been embarrassed, we've all been attacked, sworn at, abused and stabbed in the back. We've all made mistakes, each of us noddies, but never did we set out to hurt anybody. Against their attempts, we're here at the end. And coming together, I call you both friends. Think about that one. Some memories are harsh, some memories are funny. We're here for the calling and not for the money. But I could have got rich if only I could source $1 for each time Leo says, of course. To my best mate Jeff Taylor, the paid parking resistor. We'd both be arrested for the things that we whisper. We've been through some great times, some good and some crap, like suggesting we're promoting the Hamilton app. Finally, Andrew, my hat's off to you. How do you cope with what you've been through? I wonder each day just how you're surviving, how no one will go in your car when you're driving. The crazy wee handshakes, that funny wee grin, the faith in your God, the work you put in, the joy with which you engage with all folk, and the love you put into your Santa Claus cloak. So team, these last weeks are hard. They can be nasty and tense when we sneer as we see someone sign an offence. But I just can't wait to see how we're all feeling next month when we're saying, Your Worship, Mayor Geelan. Next. Bit late for that, don't we?
Do we have a poet laureate?
Deputy Mayor.
That's not an accurate prediction, is it, Councillor Bunty, around the mayoral race? That would be interesting.
New mayor.
The new mayor. Look, I can't match that humour. Obviously, I'll be brief, as concise as I can. Although I do love the lack of a time limit. The mayor's obviously summed up, I think, the achievements of this term, which I think, dare I say it, when the civic history books are written in years to come, will be seen as quite significant, bold and innovative, and it's been a pleasure personally to have served as Deputy Mayor and to work very closely with Andrew, who in my view has extremely high personal integrity, and I value that. I would like to say that at all times he followed my conservative advice. I can't say that was the case in one or two occasions. Also, I think it's very appropriate that we do honour and mention a departed colleague, Philip Young, who, if things had been different, would have been with us. And what an incredible contribution he's made to this community in many, many ways. And obviously we acknowledge Ryan, that was big shoes to fill, but I want to acknowledge you personally that you've made your very, very best to fill those shoes in a different, obviously in a different way. As people would know, in politics you should never say I was wrong. I was a sceptic initially of the Maori representation model. I will publicly say I was wrong because I have been stunned at the incredible success, and I've also been absolutely humbled by the incredible CVs those individuals have brought to our committee tables and the contributions they have made, and I would hope that we will continue to develop and grow this. It was also a pleasure, if we talk about the trailblazers, that we gave a civic award finally to former councillor Pitahira Kaio, who was a former chair of the Recreation Community Services Committee of the day and chair of the joint with Wikuki of the Ngahui Home. But she was, of course, to the best of my knowledge, a trailblazer, first Maori woman councillor elected, and it was just nice. But I'm very pleased to see that the kind of earlier work she and others had done, we now carry that on in terms of our Manga Maori representation, and that's just, you know, everything. You have a baton, right? And our current Manga Maori reps are carrying that baton on and holding that baton with incredible competence and dedication to Kirikiri Hamilton. Finally, I want to just absolutely, as others have done, acknowledge our dedicated staff throughout the whole building, inside and outside. For those of us who work, the floor 9 staff are particularly relevant. And if you look at their individual CVs, I've in a previous life been in Parliament and other places, they more than match the quality of staff that I've worked with in other public institutions, Parliament included, and I honour them, and I thank them in my particular case for the degree of humour and tolerance they show me, and I thank them for that. But without further ado, I wish everyone the best, and what a privilege it has been for all of us to have served in these last 3 years. Thank you.
Councillor James.
And following on from the member of Tamahiri, nothing prepared. But look, it has been an amazing 3 years. You know, nothing prepared me for this job. You know, I've done a lot of things in my previous career as a police officer, but nothing could compare to this, I tell you. Look, everybody here, we've all had our own differences and everything else, but we have got on and done the job for the last 3 years, so it has been a privilege. And to the staff, it must be like, you guys working with us, must be like herding cats sometimes. You know, like you must pull your hair out. I don't know how you still got hair. Sean's got a bit less, I think, but, you know, people got less hair. Now, nobody here comes to work and none of the staff here come to work to think, how can we bugger the city up today? Everybody has come in here with the best intentions, and every one of us elected members have got our own strengths and weaknesses. But I think that with those strengths and weaknesses, we actually complement each other, because no one can be all the same. But I just want to thank everybody here for the last 3 years. It's been amazing. I can't say I want to thank the Waikato Times or stuff, but you know, never mind. But the elected, the Mangai Maori, any one of these ladies or gentlemen in their own rights could be easily elected to council, because they, the knowledge they bring to the council has been absolutely fantastic. So I'd like to congratulate you guys and thank the staff as well, and thank the Democracy for all the encouragement and support you've given us over the 3 years, and Richard as well for everything you've done. So yeah, thanks very much, everybody. And whoever makes up the new council, it is what it is. Thank you.
Councillor Siggy.
Thank you. Look, it's been, just like James said and Mark, the first 3 years have been challenging, frustrating and exciting. And it's been a real privilege working with my fellow councillors and serving our beautiful city, and hopefully I've made a difference with my contribution. It's also been a real pleasure working with the staff and on different projects, and I just want to thank you all for your help and support. And I just wish my fellow councillors all the best for the elections, because we're in it all together. Yes, we are in competition, but we're also in it all together, and we know what we're going through. And also the staff, I want to wish them all the best for the new incoming council. And what I really would love to do now, if that's okay with Mayor Andrew, I would like ask councillors to stand up to give the staff a standing ovation, because they have actually earned it, and they never get that.
Thank you.
Councillor Ryan.
Mayor Andrew, yeah, I also obviously acknowledge Philip Young, and didn't have a lot to do with him previously, but certainly I still think there's a hole from the work he's done and the effect he had in the community. And it was a real pleasure to meet his wife Alice and daughter at one of the events over the last 18 months. It was quite a pleasure for me having a part to play with the Zoo Waiwhakariki opening thing we're working on, and obviously still looking for funding, so working with Lance and team on that. But that's exciting. I'm excited about the partnership funding stuff that we're working in, and if I'm successful, I really want to continue in that space with Lance and the team. And also the work Blair's doing, it really excites me. It makes council work not boring. Blair there, and the innovative tools that central government's looking at and thinking outside the box, that's really cool, and that really excites me. To the senior leadership team and senior staff, I also acknowledge you and thank you for always being helpful, supportive, accessible, and breaking things down for me when I don't quite get my head around stuff. It's been a real pleasure working with you guys and gals. Richard, for always being accessible and open with me, and also for having a sense of humour. I think you need one in this job. To Mangai Māori, and acknowledge Ollie and Norm here today. It's been a real pleasure working with you guys and your warmth and mana, and I really hope to extend and expand on our relationship individually and collectively. To the government's team, your support and smiles and lending of phone chargers and iPad chargers on more than one occasion. To the media, a B-. Still getting my head around that, but something to work on, hopefully. I'm a bit of an overachiever, perhaps. To Mayor Andrew, thank you for your leadership and support. You've got, can't read my own writing. You've got a job that's pretty unenviable at times, I'm sure, but I'm sure there's moments that are very satisfying and make it all worthwhile. But I acknowledge your leadership in making the hard call over the time I've been here. And to my colleagues, I've learned a lot from all of you. You've all got a different style, whether it's in debate or with people, but there's things I pick up from all of you, your passions, what to do and what not to do. So thank you.
Councillor Jeff.
I've just got a few thank yous to say as well. I want to start with you, Andrew. Thank you for your support over the last 3 years. I think you're a good man, and I think you're an honest person, and I think you've set a tone of trying to be inclusive and trying to be constructive in a difficult, what is always a political environment, and it's not easy. I do love the way that you're a man of action and you're always trying to get something done, and you're a very hard person to keep up with sometimes as you move on to the next mission. So thank you, and thank you on a personal note for allowing me to push on with some of the goals I've come in with, and for allowing me to prove myself to that degree, so thank you. And to the other elected members, for what's been a constructive term. We all have differences, as James says, we all have different world views. That's the way it's supposed to be. And I think the key is not to let things get personal. And if I've ever strayed into that territory, I apologise. Hopefully it hasn't been too often. But it's certainly not the way I want to operate. And I respect all the views around this table. No one's right all the time. No one's wrong all the time. Together we muddle through and try and do a good job for the city. Staff, absolutely agree with everyone. Richard, love your humour, love your approachability, and the culture that you generate in staff. Disagree with you 1,000% on task forces, but we can talk about that next term if I get past October the 12th. But yeah, thank you very much, and really enjoy you in that role.
Vote now.
Yeah.
He's in the West.
GMs, thank you all very much, and you've been great to work with. I've had, with the transport particularly, a lot to do with Chris and Eva Lisa and Jason Harrison, who's just been superb and professional and really great to deal with, so thank you. And the governance team, absolutely, you guys are awesome. Talk about going above and beyond. Someone yesterday from the governance team was trying to help my wife get on the electoral roll. I mean, how good is that? She's rung the election office 25 times and she's still not on it, so she's going to have to make a special vote, but there you go.
Who's she voting for, Jeff?
Yeah. So, but thank you for everything you do, guys, and whatever happens, you know, in the next few weeks, it's been an awesome experience. Thanks.
Councillor Leo.
A few comments. I've been around councils for many, many years, and it sort of all started when I was a boy traffic cop in Patararoo, and I used to go along to the council meetings of an evening, and it was usually made up of a local carrier and all these volunteers who went up there. And what I used to look forward to is, of course, about 9 o'clock after the meeting was finished, is the fridge was all opened. And it was probably about midnight before anybody went home. But what I want to really say, of course, is that I really admire this council, the way it has taken a real responsible attitude, particularly to, compared to what I grew up with as a young guy, as far as alcohol is concerned. And I think that's a real plus. I know when I retired from police back in 2013, I thought, what the hell am I going to do now? Because you can only mow your lawn so many times a week, and you can only play golf, and I'm not a fisherman and all those sort of things. And I came along to one of these council sessions which I had of wannabes. And the next morning I had a ring from Gordon Chesterman, and he said, oh, I saw you at that meeting last night. And I said, yeah. And he said, what were you doing there? And I said, oh, just getting a bit of information, see what it's all about. And he said, look, I think you should put your name forward and stand for council, which I did, and surprisingly didn't do a hell of a lot of campaigning or anything like that. And I got the phone call to say on a Saturday I was down in New Plymouth watching my grandson play rugby for Wellington in the Wellington-Taranaki game. It was only the under-15s, of course, not the serious stuff. And I had actually got elected, which was quite a surprise to me. And then the following year, following triennium, I thought, well, this is not a bad sort of a job, to tell you the truth, because one is you get to be your own boss, shall we say. You're not tied to 8 to 5 or anything like that. The only thing that really gets me is the amount of damn reading which you've got to do and the amount of reports which come through. But I think this year, or the last 3 years, of course, there's been a few things which I've been opposed to, and you know, I'm not a great fan of trains, Dave. I'm not a great fan of traffic congestion and all these sort of things, you know, because if we got a little bit of congestion, it actually teaches people some tolerance, you know. Tolerance is pretty important as far as I'm concerned. But I think the biggest strength which we have got, of course, and is in the staff which council has. And you don't have to bring everything to a council meeting, because I find if you ring up the right person or you talk to the right person, it's pretty easy to get things done. There's no two ways about it. I know for about the last 4 days I haven't had a cell phone. And Amy, I rang her the other day, and she went, you know, beyond the call of duty as far as I'm concerned. And unfortunately now I've got another cell phone. It was a damn good 4 days I had actually, Amy, without that cell phone, that's for sure. But just shows that what's happened. But to everybody around this table, hey, we've had our variances, we've had our different opinions and all that sort of stuff. But the beauty of it is we've managed to last the 3 years and we've all come out the other end. So thanks. And good luck with the 12th of October. And my thing is, what will be, will be. And whatever happens from there on, we'll see.
Councillor Robb.
Thank you, Chair. Look, Mayor Andrew, I've found this 3 years very challenging, and there have been parts of it that I have absolutely enjoyed, and there have been parts that have quite challenged me. I think the two highlights have been in the workspace anyway, have been around the financial strategy update. I think that was well timed, that we were at a time where after 6 years the financial strategy that had previously been in had gone past it, or was going past its use by date, and it was the appropriate time to update that. And I hope that following on from that update, that future councils will, if they don't update that, certainly try and live to the guiding principles that came out of that financial strategy. I think the other highlight has been around Māori representation. I think somebody else mentioned they were a little bit sceptical about it to start with, and I probably had a few questions, but not long questions, but short questions about. But I think that's been a resounding success, and I am absolutely impressed at the calibre of the representatives who have come from Māori to participate in our committees, and I think they've added immense value to this council in terms of their presence and their contribution. So I really hope going forward that the council, whoever is on that council, agrees that those appointments need at least to continue, and we need to look at, as time progresses, how we might grow that idea so that it meets both the objectives and the good outcomes for the city, as well as for Māori people. Philip Yong, Philip and I got to know each other very well during the last election campaign. Some of you will remember I was on crutches for most of that, and Philip lived around the corner. So like the Paula trips in this term, Philip did transport me to quite a number of events. And look, I was at the Sikh temple on Sunday, and there were people still talking about Philip. And I think wherever you go around the city, to any of the ethnic organisations, Philip still has grandsteered and is still very much remembered as being an iconic person and an iconic ambassador for our city in terms of the representation and the friendships that he developed, both when he was employed here and in the 1.5 terms that he was a councillor. So I think I'd add also that I certainly miss his presence around the city and around the table. One of the meetings I was at the other night, there was a comment about diversity around the council and how it was made up of old, and I think the person at the time was looking at Mark, not at me, about old white men, old white-haired men, and I think she was looking at you, Mark, not at me. And you know, at times we think that we perhaps haven't got diversity around the table, but I think there are other times, given the different ideas and I won't say disagreements, but the different ideas and the different approaches that we have to what we think are good outcomes for the city, we will be in potentially during those debates in adversarial roles, and I think that's good for the city. And I agree with Jeff that it's important that we don't make these things personal, that they are adversarial, because I think at the end of the day we're all looking for really, really good outcomes for the city. And although we may think that there are different ways of getting on that journey and actually getting there. And Mayor Andrew, we haven't always agreed, but I have enjoyed working with you, and I have enjoyed your ability to make decisions, and whether they were the right decisions or not, we have very much that, you have very much that attitude to want to roll up your sleeves and make those decisions work. And I think that has led to some really good outcomes for the city, which will be good legacies for future councils. Again, everyone's mentioned the staff, and I agree. I send emails at unusual times. I try on a Sunday to hold them over until Monday morning, but sometimes I'm so excited about what I'm writing that I have to send it on the Sunday afternoon. So if I have annoyed anyone in respect to that, I do apologise. But thank you for being available and for getting back to me with good, not the right answers, or not necessarily the answers I want to hear, but answers that allow me to get on. And governance too, always good judgment in the advice that I get from governance, and I've really appreciated that. And Richard, of course, is the mainstay. He's the front line to hold me back from getting too involved with direct contact with staff. But thank you, Richard, for your advice and guidance over the last 3 years. And I'm hoping that I might be here for another 3 years. But no. You've spoilt my finale now.
I object.
So as Leo says, what will happen on the October the 12th will be. But I'm hoping that maybe I'll be back here for another 3 years. Thank you.
Cool.
I wasn't going to speak, but I thought I'd better say a couple of things. But the standout this afternoon for me has been Bunty. Could I suggest to him that if he put all of his speeches on all of his motions in verse like that, you'd probably win a lot more votes, Bunty. And also to my dear friend, Councillor Martin there. You are a struggle to keep in line, as you've just sort of shown, and it's quite wearying during meetings, worrying about how you're going to vote and also worrying about how Martin's going to vote and sending him instructions at the same time. But it's largely worked out, so thank you, Martin. Hey, when I was first elected in 1998, I was quoted as saying, when in the newspaper, no one should be on council for more than 9 years. I've clearly broken that promise. And I've broken it because largely I've enjoyed it, especially the last 3 years, but some of the earlier years as well. Not so much some of the ones in the middle, but overall it's been a very enjoyable experience, and it's certainly something that I'll always remember. Just a couple of thoughts about staff. I think Leo's right. He actually put it spot on. If you've got the right relationship with staff, you don't need to bring things to meetings to get problems sorted and things done, and that's what I like about the culture of this place. It's always been a bit like that, but it's grown under Richard's leadership as well, I think, and with the crop of senior managers we've got behind us, and I'll come on to one of the senior managers shortly. I do want to say one thing about governance. As I'm up on the 9th floor quite often, and they're always beavering away in there, and every second day I go into them with an IT problem, and it is always sorted out. And I want to say to Richard and the other general managers that I don't think we need a whole separate IT section. Just pay them a little bit more and they will sort all of your IT problems out, because that's certainly what they do for us. So thank you, staff, for going over and above for that. Yes, going on to Chris Allen, like I promised before. I've got 3 little memories about Chris. One was that 10 years ago, I think, when he first came onto council, he promised to shout me a coffee and took until this bloody year to get one out of him. He's quite stingy, but we eventually got it this year, and I think we even got a photo of it, didn't we, Chris, just to prove it. And then just under 3 years ago, he said to me that we'd never get a train. So we've, but then he went around helping us get one. So thank you for that as well, Chris. The other thing that I enjoy about Chris is when he sends me emails at midnight expecting me to answer in the morning, and he gets one back from me at night, which really throws him. He stays up another hour thinking of a further reply usually. But I have really enjoyed the work with Chris and the other general managers, but I've worked a lot with Chris over the years, and I think he's a terrific guy to work with, and will certainly make things happen for you. If you can show him that you've got the numbers around council, he'll make sure it happens. Even if you haven't got the numbers, if you can con him into it, he'll no. I've enjoyed this council a lot, Andrew, and enjoyed the achievements with you. You're a very frustrating person to deal with because we hardly get one thing sorted. In fact, we don't before you're on to the next thing as well. So we usually have 3 or 4 balls up in the air at the same time, and you're criticising staff for not going fast enough sometimes, and it's simply because they haven't seen the earlier, they're just reading the earlier instructions before when the next lot come through. And I think the job of people like Martin and myself sometimes has been to try and slow you down, but to make sure we get things done. But that's a very enjoyable experience to have as opposed to not doing things. So thank you for that. And that's my lot. Thanks.
Well done.
You can do your outgoing, never to be re-elected speech now, Gary.
So we'll, Gary, we can come back to you if you want to speak. Mongai, Ollie, and is anything you would like to add? Or Mongai, Norm? Yep. Maybe come up to the front so you've got a microphone for the camera system. Ollie, would you?
Kia ora tātou. I just, following on from leadership, I just whipped up this poem while sitting at the back. So here we go. This year in politics has been quite ka pai. Hopefully we've added value, us Māori māngai. I remember our pōwhiri, the day we were born. What stood out for me was Gary Mallett's grand yawn. You all made a decision to give us a chance. We've learnt quite a lot in this political dance. It's been quite serious, but bunting is whana. All individuals, in my view, hold lots of mana. Hopefully we stay. If no, that's a pity. I think we've added value to this beautiful city. There is a Māori saying, a river of chiefs. Let's stay on the waka and give the future heaps. The red, white and black, people close, near and far. Tēnā koutou, e hoa mā. I actually literally came up with that just then. E ngā mana, e ngā reo, e ngā karanga maha o tēnei o tō tātou whara, nei te mihi kautu ki a tātou katoa, kia tono tona mai nei ki ngā māngā Māori, ki anga whakamua tō tātou nei oranga tonutanga o tēnei o tō tātou nei hapu, ngā iwi, tēnei o tō tātou nei wāhi o Kirikiriroa. Nō reira, tēnei te mihi, i ki ai te kororo mā te atua tātou katoa hei manaki hei te aki i ngā wakato. Nō reira, tēnei te mihi, tēnā koutou, tēnā rā tātou katoa.
Poem.
Yeah, Norm, so that's really well done, your poem. You did write that when we were sitting up there. Nō reira, tuaki nei au, te tautoko ngā mihi, ko mihi a te tautoko ngā mihi o tōku tuakani and ho mai nei, o te rā kia koutou, te kaunihira, kei te mihi atu kia koutou, ngā mahi ko oti pai, e koutou te wāhanga kua katahani anō ka motu. Kia koe, Andrew, te rangatiro, te kaunihira nei, mihi atu, mihi kawana kia koe, nā hau te whakaro, te whakatū, e nei tūranga ngā māngai Māori, kei te mihi atu kia koe, i runga i tēnā whakaaro rangatira o te rā kia koutou, nā me mo te kaunihira nei e tautoko whakai kia mātua nā māngai Māori, kei te mihi atu. Hey, yeah, really inspired and by Norm's poem. I just want to thank you for your kind words. It's been a real privilege to be able to bring a Māori voice around the table of Hamilton City Council. I'd like to thank you and acknowledge your courage and your foresight for establishing these positions, and certainly hope that we can continue in the next after the 12th of October. It's been a very enjoyable and satisfying role, even working with Gary. Despite your politics, you're a fine fellow as well. Look, I just want to acknowledge and thank you for the service that you provide our city. I've no doubt that the role of mayor or councillor is challenging and hard work, and I don't think you get enough thanks for the work that you do, the pages of readings that you have to read, and the legacy decisions that you make for our wonderful city, Hamilton. Nō reira, kei te mihi atu kia koutou, tēnā koutou uri no, tēnā tātou katoa.
Gary, would you like to speak? Scribble something down there in 5 seconds. Look, I firmly believe that we're all here for the right reason. I'm also firmly believe that we're not here for the same reason. We all want the best for the city and its residents. I have a unique-ish view of council, which won't be shared by many of us around the table. Not that council is a leader, but that council is an enabler. By that I mean we need to know quite clearly where we stop and where we start. And we clearly have different views as to where those boundaries begin and where they end. I've pushed the barrow as hard as I could. Often I've achieved little, but I've kept on pushing. And I think all of us have the same story. Keep on pushing. You're not too sure if you're going to win at the end of the day, but you keep on pushing because you're here for some beliefs, you're here for some reasons. You're not up here for fun. You're here because you genuinely believe what you believe. You genuinely believe you can help the city, and I respect that very, very much. So thank you, and I've actually enjoyed the 3 years. It's been good fun. My vocab clearly didn't quite meet muster sometimes. Thank you very much. Okay, General Manager Lance, anything you would like to say? No. Don't give David? No. Evelisa? Sean? Yep.
I thought elected members might like to see a short video that we prepared. It's just to go out with our annual report when we sort of release that today. So we've made a short video which is just looking at some of the highlights of the past year. So it's not for the past 3 years, but it's just sort of some of the things that have sort of been a highlight for the past year. So I thought
Explains what a qualification is.
We'll just hold that for a minute. Sure. So Blair. Sorry.
Right reply, Chris.
Chris.
I just it's been an absolute privilege for all of us to work with this bunch of councillors. It's been a great 3 years and really enjoyable. So, like Ollie, I don't think you guys get enough credit for what you do and the things that you've got to put up with in terms of being leaders of the city. So it's been an absolute pleasure for us to work with you. So thank you. And
Jen.
sorry about my comment, Dave.
Jen, Nat, Othla, is there anybody who would like to speak?
No, I just, no, thank you.
Okay, I am going to get Tame and Reverend Phil to close with a karakia, and you have a chance to say something there if you want to, a prayer and a karakia when we finish, so just we're leading to that. I also just want to acknowledge the Maunga Māori who aren't here, and if you could pass on our gratitude as a council to the team that didn't make it today.
We're remiss in taking their apologies here, but otherwise.
Okay, lovely. And I also want to use this opportunity to thank my staff, who some of them are here. Oh, she's out working where she normally is working. Particularly Jason, Jane and Janelle. So I just acknowledge them and thank them for the huge workload that particularly Jason and Janelle carried until Jane got here. So thank you. So let's power into the video. Sorry.
Hamilton is buzzing, and it's been a massive 12 months here at Hamilton City Council. The well-being of Hamiltonians. Here's just some of our achievements from the last 12 months. We do a lot to make sure we look after our great river city. We kept the clean drinking water on tap and replaced more than 6 kilometres of water pipes. We've been busy making our city safer and easier to get around. More than 23 kilometres of footpaths have been repaired or completely replaced. The safety improvements at Thomas Road and Gordonton Road were completed, including the first raised safety platform in New Zealand. More than 7,000 streetlights had new LED bulbs installed. 99% of graffiti was removed within 2 working days, and 98% of urgent requests for dog control were responded to in under an hour. More than 18 million kilograms of waste we collected was kept out of landfill. The places where people can come together help make Hamilton a great river city. At Hamilton Gardens, we celebrated the opening of the new Mansfield Garden. Waikato Museum was a finalist in the New Zealand Museum Awards, and our Central City Library in Garden Place was reopened after a seismic upgrade. FMG Stadium Waikato won New Zealand's best event venue, and Seddon Park was named New Zealand Cricket Pitch of the Year. We opened new playgrounds at Hillcrest Stadium, Mangaiti Park, and the famous Harepuki Playground was named New Zealand's Playground of the Year. A record crowd helped Hamilton Zoo celebrate its 50th birthday. And after a 9-month makeover, Waterworld was reopened. We're a city that embraces growth, and as well as looking after what we have, we've been busy planning for the future too. Construction of the brand new water reservoir in Ruakura got underway, which will hold a massive 12 million litres. The gateway into Peacock got a step closer as we approved the key design principles for the new Peacock Bridge. 1,552 new homes got the big tick. Through our regulatory efficiency program, known as the REAP, we've already made 30 improvements and 77 recommendations to make our district plan easier to work with. And we've started work to improve other processes across the council. We opened the new Smart Space in Garden Place as part of our commitment to innovation. We welcomed 1,400 new citizens to our city through 12 citizenship ceremonies and hosted over 10,000 people and services. Proud to have Mangai Māori positions appointed with full voting rights to 4 of our committees. And we had a blast getting out and about in your neighbourhoods and bringing council to you. We're delivering the best outcomes for our city, and being best in business is in our DNA. So, cheers Hamilton, bring on the next 12 months.
Okay, thank you, Sean. Go to the grand finale. Richard's going to give us a little wind down, wind out, and then we'll have our final wrap-up prayers before we go into confidential. Okay, so we'll start with gift baskets for our Maunga Māori. So we really do appreciate what you've done. I don't think it's worth all year, but it looks good.
Ben, we can't afford a battery.
And we'll now move to governance. I'm just working through my list. Sorry. Okay. So this is Tane, Reverend Phil.
Ho, ho, ho.
So next we have some flowers for the governance team.
So that's for you, Becca. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And Amy. Here. Rebecca and and Lachlan.
Have you got 1,100 bunches of flowers there?
Low on the budget. Well, I've got the mic. I thought I'd just say a huge, massive thanks to my team. They've been so amazing over the last 3 years. I'm so lucky to have such a wonderful, inspiring team to work with every day. So just a round of applause for you guys, because you really are. Next up, Andrew's got some flowers for two very special people, Louise and Bethany. Hang on. Oh, sorry. Working it?
It's a token mic.
And now to acknowledge some very important people in Andrew's team, Jason, Jane and Janelle. And finally,
Janelle, thank you. So Janelle is definitely not going to be working full-time if I do get back in, just so that people know what's going on.
and
She's retiring.
No, I'm not. I'm having a break.
And finally, Andrew's got some flowers for Richard as well.
Oh, thanks. I will not take the card off. Thank you, Andrew. Cheers. Thank you. Very good.
So we'll just ask our Chief Executive Richard to wrap up with a few words.
Yep, so
As many words as you like.
I'm going to be very short because, we want to get this meeting done so we can go home, So, hey, I just want to, for the last 3 years, I think the word that sort of sticks in mind for me is ambition. For the staff, we've stepped it up a gear in terms of being really ambitious for our community. A lot of the stuff we've done has been enabled by the elected wing, though, and if you guys hadn't been ambitious, we wouldn't have had the licence to be ambitious also. Discussions about rail is extremely ambitious. Our 10-year plan was really ambitious. Introducing the concept of Māngai Māori, the only skills-based appointments of any representative in any of our committees, was really ambitious. The infrastructure funding, the housing infrastructure fund, all that work is really ambitious as well, and I don't think the community appreciates how hard it is to make those decisions, which, on the face of it, are probably seen quite single dimensionally from the community, but there's so much work that goes behind it from a staff perspective, but a whole lot of angst goes into it from an elected wing perspective as well. So I also want to thank everyone collectively. I want to thank Andrew for his ambition as well. We developed a really robust relationship, and it was based on a level of robustness whereby Andrew knew if I was going to disagree with him, I'd only find out about it in the chamber. Not quite true. But I want to thank the elected members for being ambitious, and I'm hoping that all the candidates who are successful continue that theme of ambition, because Hamilton deserves leaders that actually put us on the map. We want to be the best at what we can be, and we want to go out there and make a name for ourselves as actually a place that's not made fun of in 7 days, but it's actually because people respect us and want to move here for the right reasons. So thank you, and thank you to my team, all of them. Cheers.
Okay, so we'll just wrap up the triennium with a prayer from the Reverend Phil and a karakia from our Kamatua Tame. Just one thing before we do that is I just want to thank the 1,000-odd employees who work in this building who have carried out the instructions through Richard of where this this committee has set guidance and direction and leadership. So all of the Hamilton City Council employees, right from Duke Street, the gardens, the water services, those we don't see often, those who get down and work, get the dirt under their fingernails, and the ones who work hard in this building. We just very much, on behalf of the City Council elected wing, we really do thank you for what you do for our city. Thank you.
E te koro matua koutou o te kaunihira tēnei te mihi atu kia koutou. E tēnei hui whakamutunga o tēnei wāhanga. Nō reira kānui te mihi atu. Ko koutou, ko te manoa i roto i au, ke hāpai tēnei tūahua i roto o Aotearoa whānui. Wai hoa mā kirikiri roa, hei arahi. To His Worship, Andrew, thank you. It's been wonderful working with you and with all the councillors and the team here in Kirikiriroa to show a model that we can be proud of, not only in Kirikiriroa, but for the rest of New Zealand to follow us and carry on and raise our country the best we can. So I just want to thank everyone. Lovely working with our team, our Māngai Māori team as well, all part of Team Kirikiriroa. Tēnei te mihi atu kia koutou. Nō reira e tātua kārango, manaki tia mātou te iti me te rahi. Whakatongi e tō wairua tapu, hei arahi, hei tohu tohu. Hei awhina mātou i te tūtuki i ngā moe moe a mai te rangi ki te whenua. Ko koe tō mātou piringa, ko koe tō mātou amorangi. Anei mātou whakawhetai rungi te ingoa tō mātou kai whakaora. O ake ake, āmini.
Pray together. Our God, we give you thanks that through this council, its staff, councillors and all those subcontractors and the many who work together, bring your grace to this city. That through their work they are the glue that holds the city together, they are the hearts that give it direction and the eyes that see its future and cast the vision for those who live here. And so, our God, we pray that you will rest your blessing upon this council now and in the years ahead. Amen.
Amen. Okay, you may be seated. So move to resolution 2, go to public excluded. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Mark. All those for, any against, carried unanimously. Okay, C1. Confirmation of the council